So fine. Let's start with Pesachim. Okay. Mishna Aleph. Or la'arba asar bodkim is a chametz or aner. So or la'arba asar. The Gemara has this lovely diversion into why is it called or? Because it's actually the night. Why would you call the night or, which is light? So right. It's sort of a pleasant language, and instead of talking about night, and we want to start the Masechta with a nice word, which is light, rather than the dark. Okay, so on the night of the 14th of Nisan, we do a b'dikas chametz by the light of the candle. Okay. Kol makom she'ein machnisin, and why a candle? We've seen this before in halacha. Every year they remind us that it's got to be a focused beam of light, not just that you turn on the light or bring in a big flame so it lights up the whole room, because then your attention is not focused in one place. So you want as you move along to be to have your attention focused in that place, which is why it's actually nowadays it's actually probably okay to use a flashlight. Okay, so kol makom she'ein machnisin bo chametz ein tzarich b'dika. So if it's a place where you don't typically bring chametz in there, then what you're going to check for? It's not you're wasting your time and energy. It's only places where there is actually a real possibility that you'll have chametz that you actually have to check. So v'lama amru shtei shuros b'martef. So why did they say 2 rows in the cellar? Okay, who said it? So this is taken as a given that you know already that Chachamim made a statement that you have to check 2 rows of the wine cellar. Okay, why is it? It's the place where that's up to where you would bring the chametz. So if somebody was coming down eating a sandwich, and it would be in the first 2 rows that you'd find the chametz being dropped. So this is talking about dafka, a place where it's there's dafka in a place where you would walk in with chametz. If it's like for example, if it's your wine cellar where you typically go down in the middle of a meal to fetch another bottle of wine for your meal. So then you're concerned that you might have had chametz in his hand while you went down to the cellar. So now, what is the definition of 2 rows? That's 2 rows of the whole cellar. Now you've probably got a diagram there showing the difference between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, right? So that's Beis Shammai on the right, saying you've got to check 2 rows on the front and 2 rows on the top. Okay, whereas Beis Hillel say only the first 2 rows in the front. So you don't have to worry about anything else, because that's the only place where it's likely to have brought chametz. Mishna Beis en choshishin shema gera chulda mi bayis lebayis umi bekom lemakom dim kain mechatze lechatze me'il er en ledavar sof. So here, in a word, the Mishnah is telling you, relax. Don't be paranoid, because you might if one person's checked the house and then you say, oh my gosh, but what happens if a mouse came and took some bread from the house next door that hadn't yet been checked and brought it into my house? Help. Okay, don't worry about it. It's not you don't have to worry about what you don't know. Okay, because ein ledavar sof, there's no end of worrying that you might have to do. Mishnah Gimel, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, bodkin or arba asar uba arba asar shachris uba sha'as abior. So Rabbi Yehuda says you've only got three junctures when you should bother checking the chametz, because if you didn't check on the night of the 14th. Okay, so then check in the morning, and if you didn't check in the morning, then check at the time of Bir Chametz, which is after the 4th hour, actually Minatorah is on the 6th hour. But after this Shas Bir has passed, then there's no point in checking again. He's worried that if you check after that, you'll see a nice piece of chametz and you'll want to eat it. Chachamim say, nah, no, lo badak or arba'asar, yivdok b'arba'asar. If you didn't check in the night, you check during the day. Lo badak b'arba'asar, yivdok b'soch hamoed. Then if you realize you got into Pesach somehow and you realize you didn't check your house, or that, by the way, is not such a far-fetched thing. If you suddenly realize that, oh my gosh, we didn't check the machsan.
Mm-hmm.
That's a common thing where you've done your b'dikas chametz and you suddenly realize that, oh gosh, we forgot to check that. Then even during Chol HaMoed, you should check it. Okay. And even after Pesach, he should still check it, right? Because you still want to check for chametz she'avar alav Pesach, which is aser b'hana, as we'll see. Okay. So Chachamim say that even after the Zman Isser of chametz, you still should check. We're not worried about him coming to eat the chametz that he finds, because he himself is going after it. The whole point of why he's going after it is to burn it. So he's not going to say, "Oh, I was going to burn this, now I'm going to eat it." That's not going to happen. So they're not koshesh for what Rabbi Yehuda is. Okay, and whatever he leaves over, yanicheno b'tin'ah. He should leave it over in a jar, in a protected place, so that it's not going to get lost again. Simple common sense advice. Okay. Back to Erevin. Yud Gimel.
A doorbell which has a knob at the end. Reb Eliezer prohibits its use, but Reb Yossi permits.
Stop.
I'm sorry?
We're in Yud Gimel.
What did I do? Oh, Yud Gimel.
We'll get to that. I think we'll get the doorbell is. No, it's not. That was yesterday's stuff. Okay. So the last three Mishnahs are Erevin now.
Right. Okay. We may replace the dressing in the temple, but not in the provinces, for if for the first time it is prohibited here and there. We may tie a string in the temple, but not in the provinces, for if for the first time it is prohibited here and there. We may cut off a wart in the temple, but not in the provinces, if with an instrument it is prohibited here and there. A Kohen who injured his fingers may wrap reed grass over it in the temple, but not in the provinces. If to force out blood, it is prohibited here and there. We may spread salt on the ramp so that it should not slip. We may draw water from the exile's well and from the great well with a windlass on the Sabbath and from the flowing well on Yom Tov.
The summary of those two Mishnahs, basically, actually the series of Mishnahs there, is that we don't make Gezeres Derabanan in the Mikdash, because people are already very careful about their stuff in the Mikdash, so we don't see a need to make a Gezerah there. But of course, these things all apply in the rest of the country. Okay.
If a sheretz was found in the temple, a Kohen may remove it with his sash, but so as not to prolong the presence of the tomb of contamination. These are the words of Rabbi Yochanan ben Brocha. Rabbi Yehuda says with wooden tongs, so as not to decrease the contamination.
Yeah, you have the machlokes over here. You've got a choice. Either you're going to leave it for longer because, or in order to find something that's not going to become tameh, but then you've got to go looking for the wooden tongs. Whereas if you're concerned that you don't want to leave this sheretz exposed any longer than you have to, so let the Kohen pick it up with something that he's always wearing, with his sash. Okay, so his sash will become tameh, but he can be mataher it. So that's the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yochanan ben Brocha. Are you concerned about leaving it there for longer, or are you concerned about increasing tumah? And the halacha is actually passed like Rabbi Yehuda, that rather leave it there for a while. You can leave somebody on guard and say, "Careful, there's a sheretz here, careful, there's a sheretz here," until the guy comes back with the tongs. Okay, carry on.
From where do we remove it? From the temple, the antechamber, and between the antechamber and the altar. These are the words of Reb Shimon ben Nanas, and Reb Akiva says the area for which we incur karas for an intentional transgression, and for the sin offering for an unintentional transgression, from there we must remove it. But all other areas we cover it with a pot. Reb Shimon says, wherever the sages have granted a dispensation that I have given you what is yours, or they have not permitted except that which is a rabbinical decree.
Okay, so what is Rabbi Shimon talking about? It doesn't seem to make sense in context, and it seems that it actually is referring back to a couple of Mishnayos back where he's saying where Chachamim gave you an extra heter, he's talking about his opinion about the Eruv Techumin. Remember he said that up to 15 amas, if you step out of the Eruv, out of the Techum, you're still allowed to come back because the Dafka did not stretch the measures. And so what he's saying is, where do they permit you to go through? It's only mishalach and nasnulach. It's because it is yours. They brought the measurement of the tchum back a little bit just to keep people further away. But if you stepped a little bit over, okay, so come back because it's actually from yours. And referring back now to our other halachas over here, he's talking in general in the halachas of the Beis Hamikdash. The only things that get permitted inside the Beis Hamikdash are things that are shvus, but they certainly don't permit anything that was asur midoraisa. V'hajan alach maseches erevin. Okay, back to Ches Zayin.
If a canal passes through a courtyard, we may not draw water from it on Shabbos, unless they made a partition 10 feet high, and at the 10 tefachim high, and at the inlet and at the outlet. Rabbi Yehuda says the wall over it is considered a partition, and said Rabbi Yehuda it happened that there was a canal in Avil, and from which they drew water on the Sabbath upon the ruling of the sages. They answered him because it did not have the minimum dimensions. If a balcony is above the water, we may not draw water from it on the Sabbath, unless they made a partition from 10 tefachim high for it, either from or above or from below. Similarly, two balconies, one above the other, if they made a partition for the upper one, but did not make one for the lower one, both are prohibited unless they make an eruv. If a courtyard is less than 4 amot wide, we may not pour water into it on Shabbos, unless they made it in a pit which could hold 2 sah below the opening, whether on the outside or on the inside, except that on the outside he must cover it, whereas on the inside he may not cover it. Okay.
Shabbos, Chaf Aleph Beis.
A stone which is on the opening of a cask, one may tilt on its side so that it falls off. If it was among the other casks, one may lift it and then tilt it on its side so that it falls off. Money which is on a pillow, one may shake the pillow so that it falls off. If there was filth on it, he may wipe it off with a rag. If it was made of leather, we may pour water on it until it disappears. Beis Shammai says we may pick up bones and husks from the table, but Beis Hillel says one must pick up the entire table board and then shake it. We may remove from the table even crumbs less than the size of a kazayas, as well as the pods of chickpeas and the pods of lentils, because they are animal fodder. A sponge, if it has a leather handle, we may wipe with it. If not, we may not wipe with it. The sages, however, say in either case it may be moved about on Shabbos and it is not susceptible to tumor contamination. A cask which has broken, we may save from it enough food for 3 meals, and one may say to the others, "Come and save for yourselves." However, he may not soak it up with a sponge. We may not press fruits to extract juice from them, and even if they are flowed out by themselves, they are prohibited. Rabbi Yehuda says if they were intended for food, the juice that flows from them is permitted, but if they were intended for juice, what flows from them is prohibited. Honeycombs which one crushed before Shabbos, and the honey that flowed out by itself are prohibited. But Eliezer says, however, he permits them.
Okay. Okay. Master Sheni Gimel Dalet.
Produce in Yerushalayim and money in the country, he must say, this money is in exchange for that produce. Money in Yerushalayim and produce in the country, he may say, the money is in exchange for the produce, provided the produce is taken up and eaten in Yerushalayim. Money brought into Yerushalayim may be taken out again, but produce brought in may not be taken out again. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says produce brought in may also be taken out again. And if produce whose work has been completed passed through Yerushalayim, its Ma'aser Sheni, and must be brought back and eaten in Yerushalayim. If its work has not been completed, baskets of grapes to the press, or baskets of figs to the drying place, Beit Shammai says their Ma'aser Sheni must be brought back and eaten in Yerushalayim. But Beit Hillel says in the name of Reb Yossi, Reb Yossi, Beit Shammai, and Beit Hillel did not disagree.
Hang on, where did? I think Beis Hillel say Yipade v'Yachel b'chol makom. I think you skipped the line there. Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe Reb Shimon ben Yehuda says in the name of Reb Yossi, Beit Shammai, and Beit Hillel did not disagree concerning Ma'aser Sheni produce whose work has not been completed, that it may be redeemed and eaten anywhere. About what did they disagree? About produce whose work has been completed. Beit Shammai says their Ma'aser Sheni must be brought back and eaten in Yerushalayim, and Beit Hillel says it may be redeemed and eaten anywhere, but the mine may be brought in and taken out and redeemed. Okay.
Nida.
Okay.
Hey Tess.
In the case of a 20-year-old female who has not brought 2 pubic hairs, she shall bring proof that she is 20 years old, and she must exhibit the signs of an alonos, and then she neither performs chalitza nor is taken as a Yibum wife. In the case of a 20-year-old male who has not produced 2 pubic hairs, he shall bring proof that he is 20 years old and must also exhibit the signs of a tsaris, and then he neither performs chalitza nor takes his brother's widow as a Yibum wife. These are the words of Beis Hillel. Beit Shammai says the aforementioned rulings apply to this female and that male when they are 18 years old. Reb Eliezer says the law of the male according with the opinion of Beis Hillel, and the law of the female accords with the opinion of Beis Shammai, for the woman hastens to come to physical maturity before the man. When the lower sign comes before the upper sign comes, a girl performs either chalitza or yibum. When the upper sign comes before the lower sign comes, even though this is not possible, Rameya says she performs neither chalitza nor yibum. But the Chachamim say she performs either chalitza or yibum because they have said it is possible for the lower sign to come before the upper sign, and it is not possible for the upper sign to come before the lower sign. Similar to this, every earthenware vessel that lets in liquid lets out liquid. But there can be an earthenware vessel that lets out liquid but does not let in liquid. And every limb that has a fingernail has a bone, but there can be a limb that has a bone but does not have a fingernail.
Right, so thus we enter the perek of Mishnayos, describing Venn diagrams that look like concentric circles.
All right. We have Choros.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carry on.
If one takes payment for judging, his decisions are void. For testifying, his testimonies are void. For sprinkling or for mixing purification water, his water is like cave water, and his ashes are like ordinary ashes. If he was a Kohen and he contaminated him from eating his truma, he may give him to eat, to drink, or to anoint himself. If he was an old man, he may give him a donkey upon which to ride, and he may give him his pay like a laborer. If one is suspected of Bikor violations, we may not purchase from either venison or untanned hides. Reb Elliot says we may purchase from hides of females. We may also purchase from him wool that is bleached on its dirt, and we may purchase from him threads and garments. If one is expected of sabbatical year violations, one may not purchase from him flax, even comb, but we may purchase from him thread or braided ropes.
Once again, this is where somebody is acting in a way that they clearly want to shift the merchandise quickly, then we have to be suspicious. But if it's something where it takes a long time and he's not showing any fear of the authorities who enforce the shmita or bechoros or whatever, then just like that, he say, okay, he's not worried. It's probably legit. Okay, get another pub.
One who says, give this get to my wife, or this document of emancipation to my slave. If he wants to retract in both of those cases, he may retract. These are the words of Reb Meir. The Chachamim, however, say in cases of gittin, but not in cases of documents of emancipation of slaves, because we can benefit a person in his absence, but we cannot cause detriment to a person except.
In other words, once the shaliach's taken possession of it, he's now the agent of the eved, and the release is in his benefit. So he can't say, I'm sorry, I can't give it back. I've now taken possession of it on behalf of the eved, and I can't return it. But for the wife, it's not such a good thing. So if he wants, so if the husband wants to recant, then you can say, okay, you can give it back.
If he wants to refrain from supporting his slave, he's permitted, but to refrain from supporting his wife, he's not permitted. He said to them, but he is disqualifying a slave from eating truma, just as he is disqualifying his wife. They said to him, this is because he is his possession. If someone says, give this get to my wife, or this document of emancipation to my slave, and he dies, they shall not give it after his death. If one says, give 100 zuz to so-and-so, and he dies, they shall give it after his death. If one brought a gift from overseas and said, it was written in my presence, but not it was signed in my presence, or it was signed in my presence, but not it was written in my presence, or all of it was written in my presence and half was signed in my presence, or half of it was written in my presence and all of it was signed in my presence, it is void. If one says it was written in my presence and one says it was signed in my presence, it is void. If two say it was written in my presence and one says it was signed in my presence, it's void. Rabbi Yehuda says, however, validates, says, if one says it was written in my presence and two say it was signed in my presence, it's valid. If it was written day by night, day and signed by day, or written by night and signed by night, or written by night and signed by day, it is valid. If it was written by day and signed by night, it's void. Reb Shimon, however, validates it. For Reb Shimon used to say, all documents which were written by day and signed by night are void except for Gittin. We write.
That's it.
That's it.
Done. Done.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Shavua Tov. A wonderful week.
Great week, and I will see you, Mr. Shem, tomorrow.
Okay.
Be well. Bye.